Hi, I'm Sophie from Year 13 and welcome back to the Expo. I'm sitting down today with Hannah and Sophie to discuss law and order, the realities of a career in law, and where a law degree can take you. So it doesn't mean being Elwoods in the courtroom necessarily, and we'll find that out in a moment from Hannah and Soph. Sophie is a lawyer at Legal Vision. She works in the corporate advisory, business structuring and capital raising team. And Hannah is a lawyer, educator and client success manager at High Resolves. She has over 5 years of experience in the intersection of education, advocacy, social justice and the not-for-profit management sector. Thanks for joining me today, girls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd love to start off with learning a little bit more about your post-school journey. So if you would like to take me on, where did you go after school and what took you to where you are now? Hannah, do you want to start off?
Yeah, sure. So I studied international studies and law at Sydney University after finishing high school. And I actually then took a big pivot, not into a career in law, but actually into a career in education. So I completed this leadership development program called Teach for Australia, where I moved to Darwin in the Northern Territory and taught English and legal studies to middle school students at a low SES school. And after a few years of that, I moved back to Sydney and I now work for an education non-profit called High Resolves, which delivers workshops to students in schools, teaching them about social justice, ethical decision making and leadership and collaboration.
Fabulous. And Sophie, how about you?
Yeah, so I went to high school here in Sydney and towards the end of high school decided that I wanted to study law and maybe pursue a career in law. I also decided that I wanted to move interstate and go somewhere totally different and leave my parents and leave my leave my friends and start something different. So I moved to Canberra and studied law at ANU. While I was studying law, I decided that the corporate and commercial subjects were the ones that really appealed to me, that I enjoyed. So I decided that I would try and become a corporate and commercial lawyer. So yeah, during uni, did random jobs. Both at private firms and also in the public service, did internships, volunteer stints, and then ended up with a full-time role after uni at Legal Vision here in Sydney, which is where I still am. So I work, as you say, in the corporate team, so I work a lot with startups and high-growth early-stage companies, helping them set up their businesses and also raise capital as well. So.
Fabulous. Well, I'll start with you, Sophie. Do you mind taking me through what does a day in the life as a corporate lawyer look like? What things are you doing? Yeah,
so I think that the chunkiest bits of what I'm doing are reviewing and drafting and negotiating documents and contracts. That's primarily what you do as a front-end corporate and commercial lawyer. So that's the chunkiest bits of what I do. As part of that as well, there's lots of calls and emails and conversations with clients as well as various other parties, lots of shareholders and lots of other stakeholders and their lawyers as well. And so yeah, that's the bulk of what I do. And then of course it's internal meetings and calls with colleagues as well.
Yeah. Fab. Could you maybe describe the role of a lawyer, a corporate lawyer, to our audience? Is it to facilitate business transactions? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so a lot of what I do as a corporate lawyer is assisting and facilitating corporate transactions. So in that field, the type of transaction that I specialise in is essentially capital raising and investment. So companies who are receiving investment from investors, and so you work with them to prepare the documents to facilitate the transaction. There's also a lot of project management as well, lots of just herding cats, to get them to agree to things and sign things at the times that you want them, so that you can get to the outcome and finish the transaction.
Would you say without the legal team behind them, these transactions wouldn't happen?
Yeah. I mean, certainly it's, a critical thing because, the documents that are in place and the terms that you negotiate, are the terms on which, the things that give people confidence to enter into those transactions and complete those deals. So they certainly wouldn't happen without the legal documents and lawyers involved, and that's certainly one of the most gratifying bits that I find about my job is helping clients drive their business forward by helping them with these transactions and putting them in a position where, they have the money that they can continue to build the business that they want.
Yeah, fab. That's a great rundown. Now, Hannah, I'll turn to you. What does a day in your life look like? And perhaps you could draw upon some of those transferable skills you learnt in your law degree or as your early stage legal career.
Yeah, for sure. My job is so diverse. Like a day in my life could be anything. So from last week, for instance, I was delivering workshops to school students up on the northern beaches. I was meeting with some deputy vice chancellors from universities to talk about some strategic partnerships with them and joint ventures. We have a tech team that's kind of managing our tech product rollout. So kind of working with them on, iterating and refining the product and talking through any bugs or user experience issues that we want to optimize, and overseeing kind of partnership agreements and policies and things like that kind of are related ancillarily to what we're working on. A whole bunch of different things, hiring people. Yeah, it's a really diverse job because I guess I work at a non-for-profit startup, so it's quite dynamic. But I think that a lot of the skills I learned in my law degree around critical thinking, analysis, communication are woven through everything that I do. And I think that my law degree has been super invaluable in enabling me to be able to bounce around all the different hats that I have to wear as part of my startup role.
Fabulous. No, that makes sense. I love that. Different thinking hats in your role. Sounds very appropriate. Okay, I'd love to turn back to your school journey because this is where lots of our audience members are currently at and thinking about their next steps. So perhaps you could tell me a little bit more about high school for you. What was your favourite subject and how do you still draw upon that today?
I really recall getting a lot of inspiration from my legal studies teacher and really enjoying that subject. And I would say that she's probably the person that inspired me to continue studying law because she was so passionate about law, about learning law, about the importance of law, as a pillar of our society. And that was really important to me. Really appealing to me, especially at that age where, you want to understand how the world works, understand how society works, you want to feel empowered and confident. And so I felt like that was an avenue for me to pursue that and learn about the world and learn about myself. That was definitely very inspiring for me. In terms of overall high school, I definitely found before I decided that I was going to pursue law, I definitely, floundered like most students for several years trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. And I think that's the most challenging thing when you're that age because everybody asks you what you want to do after high school, and so you feel like you should have a really clear answer to that, but the reality is most people don't, and I certainly felt that way for several years. And I really struggled with that because I think I'm someone who really likes a direct plan. I like to have a clear goal. So I found it, really challenging for several years, not really knowing what I wanted to do and not really feeling like I had a clear path, and I think that's been a real learning experience getting older. I feel like so much of my adult journey is learning to live with uncertainty, and I think that's something that I've gotten better at as I've gotten older, but I definitely found that challenging when I was in high school.
No, certainly I can relate. Yeah. How about you, Hannah? What was your favourite subject at school and do you draw upon that now?
Yeah, so I went to a very academically selective all-girls school, which was fantastic. I love school for so many reasons, but there were also some kind of, I suppose, challenges that Soph sort of mentioned around being able to find my path in a school full of really highly motivated, driven girls. So one of the great things about going to the school that I went to was it was a very female empowerment school. So the teachers genuinely believed and inspired in us the idea that we could do whatever jobs we wanted to do. There was no limitation on that. And I think as I've grown up in the workforce, I've realised how powerful that was to have that deep ingrained belief that my gender was no barrier to being able to achieve any sort of career. I think on the flip side, there were some super hyper motivated girls at my school who knew exactly what they wanted to do from year 7. I remember in my year 7 class, we had to go around and say, what we wanted to be or what we hoped to gain from school. And one of the girls said, I want to be a neurosurgeon. And I was like, what? Like, I've just finished year 6. I have no idea. And so for me, that was a bit intimidating because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And as I went through school, I think my favourite subject was English. I quite liked history and legal studies, but I think the most formative thing for me at school was being involved in extracurricular activities like mock trial or being involved in the student representative council, and those extracurricular activities and my passion for them kind of were much more important to me in helping me decide my journey down the track than necessarily the subjects that I liked, because it was those skills of speaking, critically thinking and working together with others to try to solve problems that I found really exciting and inspiring as part of my schooling.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. In terms of all those soft, transferable skills that can help you transition to the workforce as well. So it sounds like you liked mock trial, I'm hearing. What kind of inspired you to transition into a law degree after school?
Yeah, so I, like a lot of people, put a lot of pressure on myself from the HSC to try to get the best mark possible. I didn't get into combined law at Sydney Uni, which was the goal, so I decided instead to do the degree that I was going to combine law with, which was international and global studies, because I thought I wanted something that was quite broad-based, that would give me the opportunity to explore lots of different subject and course areas and, get a lot of exposure to what university life had to offer. And so that was really fantastic. And I think as I got towards the end of my arts degree and was thinking about what was next, I remember quite consciously having to choose between a law degree and a Master of Media Practice degree, because they were both the two kind of sliding doors moment, divergent areas that I was interested in, law and communications. And honestly, I remember my parents saying to me, "Oh, go for the law degree. Like, it'll open doors for you. It'll be great. People respect you with a law degree." And honestly, at that moment, as much as I didn't normally listen to my parents at that point in time, I was like, you know what? Why not? And I think that was one of the best decisions and the best advice they could have given me, because all the doors that my law degree has opened and the inherent respect I think that people give you when they've noticed you've done a law degree because of the rigor of the degree and a lot of the skills that you've had to learn has been really valuable for me. So yeah, that was kind of what led me to study law.
Fabulous. And did you have a mentor or perhaps a friend that was doing something you respected at school? Did you look up to anyone?
Like while I was at school?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess, when you're younger, you really look up to the people who are in year 11 and 12, and they, because I ended up becoming the president of the Student Representative Council, but I only really did that at the start because some of the girls who I really loved were the presidents of the Student Council, and they went on to go to, I think studied law and arts at Sydney University as well. So I think kind of tracking their careers gave me an idea of these are the sort of people I want to be and these are the sort of careers that they end up doing. So I thought, why not try to follow those foundations and see where I end up? Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys, in terms of, you both have had really diverse careers, you've tried lots of things, it sounds, test and learn in your own life. What have been some of your challenges associated with your career so far that you've had to work through? Hannah? Do you want to go?
I think for me, I've often gone the non-conventional path. I think after finishing university, the last year of my law degree, everyone was getting clerkships, right? That was the whole path that was meant to be taken. I remember going to the careers fair and it was sponsored by Free Hills and it was only, top tier law firms, and I didn't even know that there was an alternative that you could use your law degree for a non-law program, in life, right? So I think that my decision to not go the tried and tested path and instead move to the Northern Territory, which no one really knew much about, and to do a completely different career that I hadn't had any previous experience in. I remember a lot of my friends, having quite serious conversations with me and my parents as well about whether I was sure this was the right path for me. And, I was convinced that it was, and I think that it was hard having the courage to stand up to kind of everyone in your life telling you that this is what you should do, was a challenge for me. But I'm so glad that I did it because I was able to bring so much of the skills from my law degree into the classroom. I would run mock trials with my students because I knew that that's what I loved at school, and I, taught legal studies and was able to teach them all of the things that I loved about the law, but also using my passion for educating people. So it was the best decision I could have made, but it was definitely challenging going against the status quo.
Yeah, and Soph, what about your challenges?
Yeah, well, I think I was a little bit different in that I was one of those boring people that wanted to go with the status quo path, but I think what I found challenging is as you say, because everyone expects you to do it. There's so much competition. And so I think that was the thing that I found really challenging, in that I had an expectation of what, what type of job I was going to get after uni and the type of career that I was going to have. And it didn't go that way because it's just so competitive and you get so many rejections. And I think that is, it gives you a real kick up the bum in terms of, a reality check about how much control you can have over these kinds of things. And so, I found it very challenging. Lots and lots of rejections, and it did definitely give me pause about, what direction I wanted to take my career. But it was also a great opportunity because it meant that I could look at other types of organisations and other firms beyond, as you said, the same firms that everyone else is applying for. And it's been great because it meant that, it led me to organisations that maybe, have cultural values or work in fields that are actually more appealing to me, and that, resonate more with the types of values that I have, rather than if I had just gone down the conventional route.
Yeah, that makes sense. And where you work now resonates with those values?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to work at a firm that, really cares about, its workplace culture and, wants to make sure that it's not creating a toxic environment, which often law firms are notorious for. Yeah. That's super important, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's important to sort of strive to achieve certain things in your career, but you also just have to like your job day to day. You have to like the place that you have to like the office that you go to, the people that you work for, and those basic things end up being super important. Yeah,
that's true. Something you don't think about as a student. Well, I certainly didn't. That actually, what you're doing now will lead to 80% of your life.
Oh, yeah.
So choose wisely.
You spend so much time working, so you have to be able to like it. Yeah.
Completely, I hear you. Maybe on the flip side of that, what is one of your greatest achievements?
I echo that a lot, actually. I think that getting older, and I feel really proud of the fact that I had, I suppose, the courage to trust my intuition, to try to, lean into things that might have been a bit uncomfortable, or, gone in directions that otherwise I never might have imagined myself going in, but just trusting that weaving the different paths of my narrative together and getting to a place where I feel really proud of the work that I'm doing and I find it really meaningful. I think that's really great. I also, I guess in my role as a teacher, when I was teaching in Darwin, I felt really proud that I could help, spark learning or career aspirations in the law in young people in a way that I was while I was at school. I remember when I was teaching English, I ran a mock trial with the students about Ned Kelly in order to help them, they were reading a novel about Ned Kelly, and we kind of tried to bring it to life through the mock trial. And I remember at the end of the mock trial, some of the students came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh, I want to be a lawyer now." And that was really amazing, to bring a love of the law in students and to kind of come full circle. So that was really special.
Yeah, fabulous. Some great achievements there, guys. I'd love to draw upon the fact that you both actually work in startups and you use a range of different skills. So perhaps you could explain a little bit more about the startup space and your job, and any advice you might have for students looking to get into the startup space. Sophie?
Yeah, well, so a lot of the work that I do is working with startups and helping them, as they're first being established, and also helping them as they grow and get finance. And yeah, it's fantastic. It's really nice to be part of that type of ecosystem, because it's really supportive. Everyone is really excited and really passionate. I think what's really fantastic as well is, it's made up of lots of passionate young people who, and remarkably young for the goals that they've set for themselves and the responsibilities that they've taken on. It's really quite extraordinary. So yeah, it's fantastic to work with lots of people in that space doing lots of various exciting and innovative things. Yeah, and in terms of my job, it's something that is quite personal to me as well, because my partner actually runs a startup, and he's faced lots of the same challenges that lots of people who start startups have faced, and he's made lots of mistakes along the way. And I think that that's been a driving force for me, is to help companies not make the same mistakes that he's made when he was starting out. So yeah, I hope I can do that for my clients.
And Hannah, how about you? What's your experience been like?
Yeah, I love working in the startup space. I think having previously worked in the more traditional non-for-profit sector and also in the government sector, especially in terms of the world of education, it's quite a slow, bureaucratic, slow-moving beast, I suppose. And so being a startup in this space is really exciting because there is a lot of room for you to really cut through and make changes and really shake things up and be a bit dynamic in a space that isn't really used to that. So there's a lot of possibility and potential there. And I think that especially with COVID last year, that's completely turned the world of education on its head in terms of the potentials of technology and digital and remote learning and gamified learning through tech. I was reading the other day that apparently the education technology sector has jumped forward 10 years in the last 1 year just due to the innovations that they've had to make. So it's a really exciting place to kind of be at that frontier of education, tech and law as well, because that underpins a lot of the work that we do too. So very exciting times, very dynamic, but you're just doing heaps of stuff that's completely diverse every single day, which is fun.
Yeah, completely. A fun place to be. You've given a bit of an insight into the startup world. What advice would you have for your 18-year-old self or some of our audience members of getting into the industry you have got into? That might be education or law. Sophie?
Yeah, I think my biggest one, to echo what I said earlier, is to not get discouraged because, I think like all professions, it is changing and there are lots of, organisations, including the organisation that I work for, Legal Vision, that have only been around for a few years, and they're trying to drive the industry in a direction that it hasn't gone before. So that there are lots of opportunities out there, but it is certainly a competitive industry to get into. Don't get discouraged by the rejection and the challenges that you'll face along the way. But other than that, I think take up the experiences that you can. So try and volunteer where you can, or take up sort of random jobs, even if it's not directly in the industry or directly in the type of profession or practice area that you want to work in. I think the more skills that you pick up in various places, they are always useful, and I've certainly found that in my career as well, especially in the early days. I think getting your foot in the door is hard, and I think in the early days every job that I went into was not necessarily my perfect job or my ideal job at the time, but you always take experiences away and you take skills away, and they end up being really useful. So just take up the opportunities where you can, take up the skills where you can, and it will work out in the end. It'll be fine.
Love that. It's all going to be okay, guys. Hannah, what about you? What would your advice be?
Yeah, I think that if you don't know what you want to do, kind of finishing school or even into early uni, I completely agree that just try before you buy as much as you can. So, do your research, ask people for help, talk to them about their experiences in the industry, do internships. I did so many internships in so many areas. I did like law, journalism, public relations, non-for-profit. Like I just did so many, and I obviously was very lucky to have the luxury to be able to complete sometimes unpaid internships while I was studying. But they gave me such a great sense of the things that gave me joy and sparked my interest and energy versus the ones that I could never see myself in down the track. And a really good mentor of mine actually told me that when I'm making decisions around these things, to follow the 2 I's, which are intentionality and intuition. So be intentional in terms of thinking about doing your research, getting a set of parameters for what are the kind of career directions you want to go into. But then once you've got that sorted, trust your intuition about the one that you think is best for you. So it's a really great way that's helped me frame career decisions in the past. Yeah, that I'll continue to use.
That is, Hannah, full of wisdom. Yeah. I also wanted to ask, I think we were talking the other day and you mentioned that having a career journey or a career story. Do you mind elaborating on that?
Yeah, for sure. No, that was sort of a piece of advice that was given to me when I was feeling a bit discouraged about how disjointed my CV looked compared to other people my age group who seemed to have a much clearer linear trajectory of what they wanted to do with their life. And another mentor of mine actually said to me that in the end, it doesn't really matter what your jobs are, as long as your career tells a story. And you know, that's the narrative of who you are, what you care about, and what you want to do with your life. And it doesn't matter if the jobs are diverse, as long as you can weave them together into the story of who you are and what you want to do in the world. And I thought that was really encouraging for someone who on paper might have looked like they've hopped around a lot.
Completely, I love that, and that really ties into year 13. You can marry up 2 careers, 3 careers, or just who you are in your value system, and there is a story or a journey for you. It's about finding that through passion and purpose. Love that. I'd love to end on one fun question we ask at year 13 is if money was no object, what do you think you'd do? Where would you be today, Hannah?
In an alternative universe, I'd love to be interviewing people on Australian Story and finding really interesting people from all different walks of life who've done really cool, successful or brave things, and interviewing them about, you know, what led them to where they are and how they overcame adversity, and like kind of really getting into their psyche. And I don't know, that just gives me kicks. I guess what you're doing with us.
Exactly. You're halfway there. Living out your dream.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'd love to do. Yeah, just like really interview people for Australian Story.
Oh, nice. I like the way you frame that, the sliding doors moment. So yeah, you can have your current career, Sophie, but if you have the sliding doors moment, what is your alternate universe looking like?
I think for some of the reasons that I said earlier in terms of why I like my job and you know, the startup ecosystem that we work in, I think maybe I'd go into investing. You know, if I had heaps of money, I think that would be fun, because it would mean that, you know, you're supporting people who are doing really exciting things. You know, hopefully supporting businesses that have some kind of social purpose as well. That would be really great. But it would also mean I wouldn't have to do the hard work myself, which is quite appealing as well. So yeah.
Completely. Love that. You
support smarter people to do what they want to do. Yeah.
Completely. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much both for joining me today. We've had Hannah from High Resolves and Sophie from Legal Vision. Thanks again, both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Soph.